Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to a few of you. Welcome to today's community briefing. My name is Gregory Sneed, and we are glad you are here. Our guest today is Ethel Byndom, and she will be joining us momentarily. Today is the 25th of January, 2024. I mean, January is flying by. So next week, is next week the first for us? I
I
think so,
know.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Next Thursday will be the 1st of February. So the time is marching on. So now, without further delay, I want to introduce and bring to the virtual stage the queen of our community briefing, Miss Crystal Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. Glad you all are here. Today we got a great topic. My favorite topic for 2024 is voting. And so we have someone here that we're dedicating the show to on voting. So welcome. My name is Crystal Mitchell. I'm the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, as well as the inspiration behind the community briefing. This platform is our platform, is the voice of the communities and providing you an opportunity to meet the leaders and stakeholders, individuals that are sitting at the table, making and decisions and having conversation about us. And so we get to have our say as well. So is powered and sponsored by, and I got the wrong background, um, powered and sponsored by Recycling Black Dollars and the BBA, Black Business Association, as well as monetarily sponsored by Southern California Edison, SoCal Gas, Northrop, PCR. Our newest and latest is as soon as I pull it up, I'll let you guys know our newest and latest sponsor. I will let you know in a minute because I can't remember the name. But LDC, PCR, Wells Fargo Bank, and Urban Excellence are our newest sponsors for the community briefing. If you want to sponsor us, just reach out and let us know, and we will make that happen. We have a great guest today, again, talking about our favorite subject, Robert and our favorite subject. And but we have a fantastic team. Mr. Gregory Sneed, you already met myself and Miss Robin Billups and Mr. Stephen Turner, who is the producer. He will say hello shortly. He's the behind the scenes kind of guy. So with that, I'm going to kick it back over to Miss Robin Billups, and she will introduce herself.
Good day, everybody. Always glad to be here. I'm Robin Billups with the Billups Group. I couple supplier diversity and inclusion with corporate social responsibility to help entities and entrepreneurs assess, coach, and get to a strategic plan towards their successful economic goals. So basically, what I do is what goes on behind the curtain in procurement, and how do you participate in that for successful bids. But I'm excited because Ethel is a personal friend of mine. I know the
Absolutely.
work that she's done over the last 40 years or so. She's done an exceptional job in and around the region of St. Louis. She's been on a national level. And you guys know me about Crystal and I, every week we're talking about this vote. We are in a critical time right now. So that's the reason why this is a topic, the topic that we're going to be talking about from now on, not just during voting season, but just from now on, because it's so critical to have our voices heard. Glad to be here, and I'm going to turn it back over to Greg so we get started.
What's the actor that always says, all right, all right, all right?
Greg
All right, all right, all right.
Steve.
Well, no, that guy, yeah. Anyway, so our guest today is Ethel Byndom, and I will review a quick bio on her. With a passion and mission to helping the African American community to better understand the importance of the power of voting, Ethel Byndom strives to change the narrative by raising the numbers of voter turnout in the African American community. She single handedly registered over 3,000 individuals to vote in the past 20 years. Amen to that. Her experience spans federal, state, and local elections. She's worked for 2 congressional representatives and served 8 years as the director of the St. Louis region for the Office of the Missouri Secretary of State. She was actively involved in the registering and election process while at the Missouri State Secretary of State's office, which is responsible for certifying elections. Most recently, she spent the last 9 years as the director of the community engagement of the Office of the St. Louis County Executives. My mother was raised in Kansas City, so she always said Missouri, and it took me the longest to realize that it actually was ended in the I and not an A.
Nice.
So please join us in welcoming to the virtual stage Miss Ethel Byndom.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to God be the glory, no doubt about it. And good afternoon to all. Hi, my good friend Robin Billups, and it's good to see everyone else. I have to apologize about no picture, not being able to get on camera, not sure what's going on, but as long as you can hear me, we're good. Is that right? We're okay?
You're
Yes.
loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you. But before I begin, I really would like to send out condolences to the King family in the passing of Dexter Scott King. I understand that he was the one who diligently worked behind the scenes to keep the dream and legacy of Dr. King alive by preserving his writings and speeches of his father so that they would continue to be uh, broadcast all over the world. He was one that preserved the intellectual property of the King family. And all I can say is we wouldn't have much to say about the topic of voting and what we're going to discuss today if it were not for the efforts of Dr. Martin Luther King and other civil rights leaders. So in the Black community, he or they should be honored every day and not just one, that I think. I just want to start off by saying that uh, it has been expressed that I have a passion and a mission for elevating the vote in the Black community. Um, the Black vote is so very precious and it's such a high commodity. Its true value, I don't think, has been yet released and really understood as to how valuable it is within our community. Again, my passion, my mission is to elevate that and the importance of that. As it's been said, the upcoming 2024 election, we can't stress how important our vote is going to be in this election. It has been in all elections, but of course, we've got something so totally new that we're facing uh, in regard to voting that I think it just needs to be emphasized all the more as to how valuable the Black vote is. I don't know whether or not you want me to stop or just continue or have questions at this point. But one of the things that I want to emphasize is that in 2024, it's estimated that there will be approximately 34.4 million African American eligible voters. 34.4 million nationwide. I didn't say registered voters. I said eligible voters.
Eligible. Mhm.
Yes, an eligible voter is defined as a person of 18 years of age or older and is a citizen of this country. Black eligible voters may or may not be registered, or they may not be active in the process.
Mhm.
Many register, and because of lack of voting, then they're suddenly taken off rolls, etc. But again, in 2024, it's predicted there will be 34, almost 35 million eligible Black voters. Um, there's a lot of focus, if I can keep going.
Please
There's a
do.
lot,
You got about
uh-huh,
20 minutes.
okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of focus on registration. But I have come to know that that's just the first step in participating in the political process. Voting is really a three-step process: registering, then you've got to have some voter education, and then voting. Those are the three steps that are involved in being an active voter. And it's good that there's so much emphasis placed on registration, but if it doesn't move to where it needs to be, then you've registered, you're on the rolls, but you're really not participating in the whole process. So again, I think that if we don't begin to look at this three-step process in our participating, then our numbers will probably be stagnant and the participation level won't rise above a certain percentage. And then the other thing is that with voting, because it is a three-step process, I think that that is sometimes why people skip the process altogether. You know, maybe understanding that there's a commitment, there's a responsibility in voting. And I'm not saying that we're not committed or we're not responsible, but life happens, right? And the whole thing on voting on election day, or becoming familiar with absentee voting, or casting a vote by mail, all of those things are part of the educational process. And having the time to really schedule to make sure that you show up at the polls. Employers granting time to go and cast a ballot. There are laws in regard to all of that. So it's sometimes those things that may stop or hold the process up, but I'm just encouraging all that we've got to understand just how valuable our vote is in this country. It is really important, because voting can trigger so many other positive things that can happen. Voter moves legislation. Yeah, voting moves job availability. Voting moves so many and affects so many things that governs our everyday life. And when you don't vote, you're basically giving your vote over possibly to a candidate that is not of your choice. And so that's why I just know and I understand that until we come to the realization of how precious of commodity it is, then we will undervote. We will not turn out as we should, even though I'm so excited that our numbers have increased so greatly. I'm really excited about the fact that we are remembering our forefathers and the sacrifice they made uh, in getting us the right to vote. Um, it showed up in 2020 with our young generation. They turned out in record numbers for midterm voting, which is kind of unheard of, because we tend to always wait around for the presidential election instead of being active in midterm elections also. But again, of the 34.4 million eligible voters, um, most of those eligible voters are in 8 different states.
Mm.
Georgia accounts for a third of those eligible voters. Texas has the largest number at 2.9 million eligible voters, followed by Georgia and Florida, respectively, with over 2.6 million people who are eligible to vote. New York has stopping we can't, but New York has 2.4 million. California has 2 million. North Carolina has 1.8 million, and Maryland and Illinois have 1.4 million each. Those are people in the Black community that can register and participate in the process, but have yet to do so. I think someone was going to stop me.
Ethel, you know what? You know that's those numbers are astounding. You know, and
Yeah.
when you look at what's happening in those markets, you know, the Texas. Well, you know, we understand Georgia. Georgia has been fighting a good fight, but when you look at the Texas and the Florida voters and what's going on there, yeah, well, thank you for those statistics. But can you speak to having grown up in St. Louis and knowing the mentality in the Midwest and being north of the Mason-Dixon line? Can
Mhm.
you speak to some of the tactics that you've used to get people out to vote? You know, we here we do a large push in the churches, you
Mhm.
know, and I think that, you know, if you can share some of the tactics that you've seen that have worked, especially when it comes to our community.
Okay. Education, 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 voter education. Letting people know what's going on in their state legislators. Uh, a lot of times people don't pay as much attention to local and state elections as they do federal. And so when you turn their attention to what is really happening on a day-to-day basis as to where they're located, then they will tend to give a greater ear and pay more attention to that. So that has been one of my greatest strategies because in Missouri, just about all our both houses are led by one particular party, as with a lot of other states, and they're constantly changing laws. The other thing, the one other tactic that I use is making people, I don't want to, maybe making people is too strong of a word, but exposing people to when the constitutions are changed, your state constitutions that really affect laws and what you can and cannot do, voter ID, understanding some of that, understanding who's pushing it forward, just all those things. So that's been one of my main things, is educating people and asking them to pay more attention to their local and state representatives as well as federal. um, Talking to the churches, because again, that's the greatest audience for gathering the African American community on a weekly basis. So I think that that is a really, really important avenue of getting educational elements about voting out.
Let me ask you a question about the, you know, the multitude of marketing material that we see, you know, right now, I just got my primary election information in the mail. Talk to us
Mhm.
about that material and how to use that material and what, you know, other resources where we can find the information to help with the education part.
Okay. Um, I'm a 50-50 supporter on campaign literature, because it can contain the truth and it can contain some truth maybe distorted or blown out of proportion sometimes. And is it really an element that a voter can find out what they really, really need to find out? I mean, yes, they could probably find out what the 5 points of that particular candidate might be, and why they should vote for them or cast their votes. That's why I say I'm 50-50 on that. But a lot of times, mailing, believe me, they don't have the impact sometimes that candidates believe. People will pick it up, look at it, most likely, just glance over it, and it's like, okay. Most people who pay attention to those have already decided who they're going to vote for, because they've been paying attention
Mhm.
to what that particular candidate is doing. I think that attending town hall meetings, I think that attending speaking engagements for candidates, community meetings, all of those type of things are avenues that a voter can educate themselves on. And then
Mhm.
this wonderful world of technology where you can go online and probably search and find whatever type of information that you would want to on a particular issue or candidate, for those who love that source or way of research is always available.
You know, in these last campaigns, we've had, you, to your point earlier, the young folks have really, really come to the table. And I think that part of, you know, they can get discouraged because stuff doesn't, you know, the government moves so slow, right? And
Right.
not having the experience of knowing that everything is a process. You know, I tell kids
Mhm.
all the time to be engaged in, when you're in high school, being engaged in the elections and the voting that happens to pick your city council and the president of this, that, and the other kind of organization, which really prepares them to start to be actively engaged. But
Mhm.
I guess my concern is, and I want to hear your opinion about this. You know, as you mentioned, the young folks were the ones that carried the vote. Literally, women and young folks and
Mhm.
Black people in particular carried the vote in these last elections. And now
Yes.
there's, you know, you're hearing a lot of them, just what the news coverage is, you're hearing them being discouraged, you know, that Biden didn't do this and Biden didn't do that and Obama didn't do this and Obama didn't do that. But at the end of
Mhm.
the day, there's a process. So talk a little bit about that and messaging to the young people to be prepared for, you know, the long runway to some degree.
Okay. And I'm glad you went back to that. You know, even in today's flashy world of technology, TikTok, whatever, social media, our children still need to be taught to understand the importance of voting. I am definitely a proponent of having voting mock activities in grade school. You know, not don't wait to high school, even though that's good. I'm glad that avenues have opened up, that there is more of an allowance for people to go into high school seniors who are about to turn 18 to get them registered, etc. I mean, seeing that you can register 6 months just as long as out, or more, just as long as you are going to be 18 on that particular voting day, then you're eligible to register to vote. So I think that all of those activities should increase in our schools and among our young people. And right now, I mean, just look at what we're faced. Our young people have to understand the difference between dictatorship and democracy, and what we're about to lose, or possibly, no, not what we're about to lose, what we can possibly lose, because I'm not going to make that such a permanent statement by saying that, because I, again, with 34, almost 35 million eligible voters, there are votes there to make sure that those things don't happen. And so I encourage all uh who may be listening. I'm sure all of the audience are eligible, or voters, or registered voters, and participating. But, someone walked up to me and said, "Well, what are we going to do?" Well, I turned around and said, every time you meet someone who's 18 years of age or older, you ask them, are you registered? Have you voted? Do you know when the next election is? Etc. It's up to you to be a mouthpiece to encourage others in the community to make sure it's not on one person or group or whatever. All of us have a responsibility in bearing, encouraging voter participation. So yeah, because about 7 out of 10 Black people in the United States are eligible to vote because of our age population. And so I just think that there should be an even greater push of understanding that it's time. It's been time to make sure that we go full steam in regard to voting.
We're so personality driven when it comes
Mm,
to activity, right? It's
uh-huh.
it's a sad state of affairs that somebody got to induce us to take care of our
Mm,
own business, right?
right,
And
right.
so, we had the Stacey Abrams who was out there, creating
Absolutely.
that rally and cry in a
Yep,
Georgia.
yep,
I don't see that individual in this phase that we're in right now. But I
right.
think that, and I want everybody else to chime in at this point. I think that we literally have folks are starting to feel the pressure
Hmm.
that if they don't come out and speak. I love me some James Carville. I don't know if you guys watch him,
Me
listen
too.
to
Me
him.
too. I listened to him
He is a
yesterday.
man on a mission. He ain't scared. He from
No.
Louisiana and he acts like it. And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
the other thing that I wanted to just talk a little bit about the absentee vote and the mail-in and the benefit of taking advantage of that.
Well, it's really interesting the strategies that have been employed recently in
Mhm.
regard to that. One, when we were talking about employers, one of the benefits of mail-in voting or absentee voting, whichever it's referred to in your particular state, um, is that that's it comes in. It's good when those employers don't grant the proper time. It's also good that it gives you more time maybe to focus on what's on the ballot. Um, in regard to our seniors, it's an important avenue for seniors who may not be able to get to the polls, but of course are still and desiring and wanting to be active voters. All right, so those are some of the pluses in our community. Not many rides to the polls may be in place here, that, and the other, but the mail-in ballot or absentee ballot can be used in that regard. Many of us travel sometimes during an election day. So to use an absentee vote or mail-in process could be a benefit to making sure that you cast your vote and you don't have to have a supplemental ballot for any reason at all.
Um, my nephew recently, in fact, my sister was ready to kick him out the house. But kids are very connected to what's happening on social media, especially TikTok, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
in correspondence to what Robin said about Biden, and the kids get caught up in that. He's too old. He's do this, do that. So he was saying to us, and I don't know, but he felt he was going to vote for Trump. It's like, whoa, wait, why? And he was saying, well, he's doing more for the country than Biden is. And I was like, wait, no, let's back up a little bit. And so at that point, my sister and I said, okay, we got to sit down and have conversation with these boys,
That's
because
right.
they got to understand it's not the hype that's on social media. You got to really get involved in the community. And I think that's the problem. Our kids are not necessarily involved like we are, but I think our responsibility is to make sure everyone in our families understand how important this is to us as Black people. There's things that are going on that we're so paying attention to the hype in the hyperbole from Trump that we don't
Mm,
recognize that our rights are being taken away from us every single day, every
every
minute of
single
the day. They are
absolutely.
completely focused on removing our rights. But I'm like Robin, I don't know. I'm not hearing enough. I'm not hearing enough right now that we're ready to go to the polls to protect our democracy of this country and our rights as Black people, because we're the first one on the totem pole that they come
Yeah,
after.
yeah. Oh, you took the words out of my mouth. I've been saying that almost every day, Crystal. Because we're going to be first on the agenda, no doubt about it. Important. You raised such an important point. I saw uh, a clip of the New Hampshire primary, the day the caucuses and that process, and they interviewed a young Black gentleman who looked like he might have been 20, and he was all for the Trump vote. and then they interviewed a young white uh, fella, and he was definitely not for Trump. And so the young African American gentleman was talking about all these jobs that Trump had provided, and how he has made he made the economy so good, and all these great things that he's done. And it's like, yep, okay, bling bling. That's what you're looking at. You're looking at this world of you know, how he prospers in the wrong way, or what he's introducing, or what he's proposing in the wrong way, and you haven't even heard the word dictatorship come out of his mouth. You're too busy looking at other factors and having others lead you, and they influence each other so greatly. I'm sure that, like many of you on this call, I was so blessed to have parents that we still had dinner together. And at dinner time, that's what we discussed. We discussed about what was going on in the world, in the community, with our elected officials, especially with our president. And so, I'm not into insulting people's age. you know uh hey, some people function very well at 80 years old. I hope that I'm one of those persons, as I begin to age and approach, you know what I'm saying? And so, okay, but I also know that one of the things that I look at, and I shouldn't maybe say this, but in regard to Biden. So if something happens with Biden and Kamala is still the vice president, then she becomes the president, I think is how it goes. And
Yes.
so, if you're so worried about age and Biden and stuff, vote the ticket. Think
Yes.
about the ticket, okay? But also, there have been there have been many good things that have happened under Biden for the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
If we the student debt forgiveness program
Mm-hmm.
can be one of them. The CARES Act, that those monies were allocated for under the Biden administration. I worked on those while I was still at St. Louis County. I know how many businesses the reimbursement for loss of income, employees, et cetera, during COVID, those things, how it affected it, and how it allows some businesses to sustain themselves. So there have been a number of things. Now, I keep hearing from the other candidate that he he wants to make America great again, but there is some emphasis that the Black folks and vote somehow doesn't make America great.
Yeah.
And so, please, 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 you have to understand what's really being said. During the Trump administration, the whole thing about being woke became a joke. There were
Yeah.
so many other things that spoke to how he really felt about our particular community, and I think we just really have to pay attention to that.
We have a couple of questions, and Richard, I'm gonna come to you first, and then I'm gonna go to Dr. Karen Beard. But I love what you just said. Vote the ticket.
Yeah.
We have this go round. We have
Yeah.
to vote the ticket. And to your point, when you look at the way politics is set up, a person can only get so much done. They can only get so much done. And
That's
so
right.
you get done what you can get done, and you keep fighting the good fight. Richard, go right ahead.
All right. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Ms. Byndom. We really appreciate the information. As I think Robin stated earlier, especially when it comes to young people, they're very much into personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing you have to give it to Donald Trump, he's all about PR and
Yep.
marketing.
Yep.
He's a genius when it comes to that. He's about PR and marketing. For a crook who started in New York as a crook to become president, the most powerful man in the world. That says a lot about your marketing prowess.
Yeah.
But in terms of my question, we had talked about young people voting earlier. Now, I recognize that we do have the Get Out to Vote campaigns, Ms. Bindum, but are you in St. Louis or other states around the country? I'm not sure if you're working with Black Voters Matter, Cliff Albright, and Latasha Brown. I know they cover about 25 states, but I'm not sure. I'm not very pleased with civic education versus get out the vote. Because see, when you're just getting out the vote, you're telling people to go out and vote because we this. But when it gets into civic education, then we're talking about a comprehensive plan to push us out forwardly as a movement. So can you just address that for a minute?
Civic education versus a get out the vote program.
Yeah,
You need both.
yeah.
There,
But I'm asking,
there's
are you satisfied with civic
No,
education, say in
no,
St. Louis, in
no.
terms of working in our high schools and really
Yeah.
educating our children?
no. I am not satisfied. It all across the state, all across the country, it can be improved. And I'm familiar with the group in which you mentioned. I think that what happens is that there are probably many people or pockets of people that work in a silo to do the same thing. And maybe, it's not necessarily coming together as a organization or with a particular organization, although I do encourage people to follow, look at the information, see what's out there in regard to getting out the vote and civic education. You just can't have one without the other. That's why I said it's a three-step process. And if you leave out that middle process of education, then you're just telling people you got to go vote. But I don't really know what I'm voting about. And many people, I mean, this is not meant to be a degrading comment, but it's just from my experience in voting, is that people say, oh, yeah, I recognize that name, and will vote that way,
Yeah.
not knowing anything
Yeah.
about the candidate. And so we've got to have both. We've got to have more civic engagement. We've got to uh, begin to educate our youth on this is something that is going to be a part of your life. This is a responsibility you bear. This is something and a right that you shouldn't take for granted. And so I just believe that those things can increase. In my experience in Missouri and in St. Louis, um, although some think it's wrong to address these issues within the church, but again, that is where we sometimes have our greatest
Disseminate.
audience. And you just cannot leave that out. There are many pastors who just don't believe in having that subject brought up during the Sunday morning worship time. But it's been my experience that uh, when they do allow it, you have a group of people or the number of people increase who will become active voters.
I want to read a couple of comments that are here. And Ted, I'm going to call on you in a few minutes after Dr. Karen speaks. But Ted says social media is tied to the notion that 90% of perception translates to the truth. This is sad, but it is such a profound statement. Joseph says the age difference between the two is only a few years. There is so much myth about Trump that it is spread on social media it's just astounding. And again, everybody likes to hide behind the fact that they can put a lot of crap up on online and never take the time to validate, investigate, or express an opinion to counter what's there. And I love this, Greg. You are so right. Idolatry, both in Judaism and Christianity, is the worship of someone or something other than God, as though it were a God. We are in the season of idolatry. No
Mhm.
question about it. No question
No
about it.
question. I
When
mean,
I
how
was
many
talking
times
about
do
the
you
age
hear that?
difference,
Mhm.
the age difference is actually 3 years.
Yeah.
We got 80 and 77, and people act
Well,
like Trump is some young whippersnapper. He's corrupt. He's
mhm.
losing his mind. He's
Mhm.
always been a narcissist. But
Oh, yes.
somehow Biden is too old and too boring for our young
Mhm.
folks. I was visibly disturbed about what Crystal's young people were telling her
Mhm.
about all these wonderful things that Trump did. None of that is true.
Yeah.
But that's where perception is really our enemy. None of what they're saying is true. And actually, most of those good things are happening under Biden, but
Yeah.
somehow that's getting lost in all of the
The delivery. Because of how
well,
they
not just the
deliver.
delivery, all
Or
of the
how it's
whirlwind of attention that surrounds Trump. He's
yeah.
the only person we know that could be indicted criminally and it would help him. Anybody else? Can anybody else think of a candidate
No.
where 91 indictments would actually be good for them?
No.
It's
No.
astounding. It
But
really is.
We're
That's
gonna
what
move
What
we're-
does
to
that say about this country?
yeah.
I mean,
nothing
seriously,
good.
our men, our boys and women are thrown in jail at the slight or killed at the slightest infringement of the law. And a lot of times is they're not guilty, but yet it does not stop them from being prosecuted, serving time. I mean, how many stories have you seen where many of our men have given 30, 40 years of their life for being wrongly convicted. But here you
Correct.
talk about a man that has engaged in such having the opportunity to become
Heinous.
president, possibly become president again.
Yeah.
Mm.
Dr. Karen, you gotta get off of mute, mama.
All righty. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I have a comment which I kind of consider a cautionary tale when it comes to absentee voting. I live in California because I love California, but I'm a Florida resident. And so I have to, I do absentee voting. I'm always concerned that not that I won't get my ballot because, say, my county didn't send it out, but for some reason out here, I have a problem with the mail.
Mm-hmm.
And so absentee voting is time sensitive. So I am never relaxed about my absentee ballot getting here. So I have to take extra steps. Call the county. Did you mail it? And then check with the post office because again, I barely got my ballot in time for the last election. And so I just make that comment to let you know that just because you're an absentee voter, it doesn't mean that you can rest assured that everything is going to work out for you because it is time sensitive. And the other thing I wanted to ask was that now I know you shouldn't tell people how to vote, but when we're doing voter education, there are prohibitions around what we can say or do, say in a voter education class.
You know what?
Okay.
I'm looking at the comments that Ted put in the chat box, and it says he's on the political education committee with the LA Black Workers Center and host a voter education forum called "Know What the Hell You're Voting For." So Ted, come on in and respond to that question, and then we'll come back to Ethel.
One of the things with the political education, the Black Workers Center really advocates for Black employment, but civic engagement is critical to it. That's how anything has ever been done in the Black community. It's important that we have civic engagement, that all of us participate in some form of civic engagement, and voting is primarily because policy is so everything happens through policy and laws, and so if when you don't participate in the process, then you're like giving your rights away to somebody else. So we're really big. We do a series of things around voter education, helping people to understand the significance and importance of them participating in the political process. And even having this whole conversation about when you talk sway one way or the other, but think about the lesser of the two evils. Because you, regardless of your opinion, you have to participate in the process. To say that I'm not going to vote because you're upset about something, you're putting your destiny in somebody else's hand when you do that. We have to participate in the political process, regardless of, like you say, all this stuff is a process, and we need to have all of us, it has to be a series of things in terms of civic engagement activity that allows us to talk to educate the community on just on the political process, on how to vote, on on the various measures. We can talk about all the measures to know, and so you'll be able to. We're big on helping you to make an informed decision. Every voter needs to be able to make an informed decision. If you don't know, and then when it comes time to vote, you're just pushing buttons. No, sometimes when you just pushing buttons, you're voting against your own interest. And so that's why the voter education is so, and that know what the hell you're voting for. I got several groups that we do a series. So just understand what the laws are around voting and
So
how to
Chad,
vote.
if you can put that information in the chat box so we can send that information out. Well, the next time you guys are hosting that, and and again, we need to circle back because you're local. You're dealing with our local folks. You're dealing with young people, and I think that there would be some benefit to that.
We even have forums where we have politicians. We actually we've interviewed folks around what are they doing for the Black community. So especially our local politicians from the county, from the Senate, from the state. We do a number of things, and we do a series. So I see the need to really do stuff in partnership this year with our partners when we do, because it's going to be a series of things, not just one event. It's going to be several events we're going to be doing around voter education and civic engagement.
Okay, well, time is of the essence. So as soon as you can get that information and we can get that out there, and let's all of us, spread it out. And Dr. Karen, you look like you still have one other thing that was bothering you.
Yes, because I don't know if I heard my answer in terms of what we're restricted when we're doing voter education. Are we restricted in what we say or how we say it? For example, in an organization that I'm in, we cannot advocate. So we have to use the terms information and education. We're providing information and education. So I'm just trying to learn whether when you do voter education, are we restricted in how we talk about it and what we talk about?
Nonprofits are restricted. We can't, when we're doing those forums, we can't endorse anybody. The best that we can do is let them know about the process and the legalities around the process. Let them know about all the measures, because the key is helping a person, educating a person so they can be able to make an informed decision. So when you know what like going to the polls and different things that's supposed to be happening, how to actually vote, those, and just the criteria, who's eligible to vote, along with, those are the kinds of things, along with just, we don't so much hang the hat on candidates, but we talk about all the measures. There's always measures, so because it's not just, you're not just going to vote for the president.
Correct.
There's a bunch of other things.
I was going to follow up on that. That's exactly right. As nonprofits, we cannot. But however, we're individuals, even those of us that are co-directors and directors of our organizations. We all have social media, right? We need to be information that we have, and it's being we're receiving, because we're in the know. Not everyone's in the know. We should be using our platforms, just like we ask celebrities to use their platforms. I know I have, over 7,000 people following me on all of my resources, right? So I post, and I know they're reacting to it because I put things in personally that about my garden, and then I get a whole lot of, so I know you're listening to me. So, and so we all have that opportunity to do that. And I think right now it's imperative that we as a community collectively get the messaging out, how important this election is. And why it's important. We have conversations about equity and inclusion amongst us, but I had someone the other day ask me, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they're in HR. So they surely really should have known
Oh,
what
yeah.
that meant, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we make an assumption because we know that everyone else knows. And we make an assumption that they understand the perils that we're about to engage in, but not necessarily so, right? Because they're
Mm-hmm.
hearing the hyperbole. So if Trump has used his free platforms and everyone is talking about his conversation, why can't we do the exact same thing?
Greg
Because
made a
that's what
very
we have to do.
Greg made a very valid point. Voter disenfranchisement is a larger
Mm-hmm.
problem than we acknowledge, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps more of an issue than voter information on the candidates. And you're right,
Mm-hmm.
folks are just unplugged or disengaged. And but we're kind of running up against the clock. Ethel, are there some closing comments you want to make? And one final thing before I turn it back over. We had our new president of the Urban League dialed in today, and I was really trying to get to her, but the
Oh, wow.
conversation was moving. You know, we had a good conversation going on. Dr.
Okay.
Cynthia Hurd was on with us for a little while. And
Oh.
I think what we're saying and what Greg's point is, which is what the community briefing is all about, partnership, alliances,
Mm-hmm.
collaboration. Stop operating in silos.
Yeah.
Stop operating in silos.
Yeah.
Ethel.
Yes, thank you. I do want to real quick address Dr. Beard's question about whether or not things have to remain nonpartisan. Registration is nonpartisan. And of course, as has been stated, not for profits are limited. Some organization in their bylaws and rules say that you have to remain nonpartisan. But I agree with Crystal that there is a way to get the Democratic message out through educational forums, etc. Not all are barred from that, and so there can be a great amount of that to go on. But in conclusion, I say, to all, okay, you may not be a millionaire, you may not have this great status in this country, so you think, but you're valuable,
Mm-hmm.
and your vote in this country is valuable. And I adjure you, our people, to not give it away.
Yeah.
We always talk about equity, equality, which are different, but still, the one place in which we do have equality is in our vote.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to say, please, please don't give it away. And if it were not valuable, my question is, why do so many seek to take it away from us?
Yeah.
True that. True
Yeah.
that.
So,
Uh,
okay. Thank you all.
thank
I
you so
really
much.
enjoyed it.
This is
I'm sorry for the camera issue, but I uh, just am grateful for the opportunity to be on and just to express about voting. We've got to do this. And right now, currently, uh, Trump has established some Black groups in North Carolina and Georgia, Black Voices for Trump. And so our voices have to be much louder than that.
I quite agree. We all need to be more involved, more outraged, I guess, just like he's outraged. We need to be outraged as well, protecting our vote. And you are so right, Ethel. If it wasn't, our vote wasn't valuable, they wouldn't even be bothered with whether or not
Would
they
not
wanted
even
it or not. But actually everything we do is valuable because the
Yeah.
minute we do something, they all over it like a cheap suit. So that tells you
but
that
just think about it. Just think about what the right to vote opened up for us as a
Yeah.
people in this country. I
right.
mean, it really affected so many other things.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's sports, whether it's whatever. I mean, our growth is there, and that is one of the reasons why there's a desire to take it away. That equality has been recognized. And just one other thing, real quick, for Dr. Beard in regard to absentee ballots, she's absolutely right. You do need to do follow up.
you shouldn't hold it and mail it 2 days before the deadline, with the situation with the mail. All of those things you do have to follow up with that, and it's interesting. That was one of the main ways in which ours use for their party to have a high percentage of votes. Now they've switched to in-person voting because we've become educated on absentee voting.
It's true.
So,
Very true.
all right.
I
Thank you,
drive
guys.
mine to the ballot house. I take it into the to the registrar's house. I hand it to an individual because I want mine to be counted. Second thing is, uh, Dr. Mitchell, my sister, as Rob Richard said, she said that she's in transition, but she would love to be a guest. And so, Stephen, I will give you the contact person, and then after she transitions, I last night I was with the Urban League, and so her schedule is crazy right now. But let's look at her down the line because I think she's just a dynamo. I think there's two organizations that's going to really the Urban League with their leadership and Vermont Slauson with their new leadership. I think it's going to be stratosphere efforts
And the
going on.
BBA with its new leadership.
And yes. And I don't know how many of you attended the City First Bank event the other day. It was an amazing conversation. So for those of you that don't know, City First Bank, which was formerly Broadway Federal, they're making a major their comeback. So please go over, talk to them, see how they can be beneficial for your small business, for you. I don't know.
Delmy is on the line with us.
Delmy's on the line, and if any of you been reading about Wells Fargo, y'all really need to be thinking about a new bank. So go out and interview some new banks, man. So thank you so much.
Thank
Ethel,
you.
please, you can come back. We're going to do, that round table was off the chain. We had such great conversation. It was a full house. And on top of that, we had Chef Marilyn feeding us. So you couldn't ask for better than that. Also, Chef Marilyn made an announcement while we were there, or to me anyway, that she's opening a breakfast spot over where the Flying Fox is, where that restaurant was. She's opening that up. That should be open in 2 weeks, so we want to support her. Doolin just reopened, and I believe the Sarah and myself and GLAC, the BBA, GLAC, and RBD, we're going to collaborate together with JC to have a luncheon over at Doolin's coming up. So that marketing will come out eventually soon, as well as RBD. We've kicked off the selling of our ads in our resource guide. We can't do better, guys, if we're not supporting each other as Black businesses. We have to put ourselves as a priority. We have to support our communities. We have to change the economic fabric of our communities. I'm sure Constance can tell us that from a lending standpoint. If we're not engaged in our communities, why should anybody else? And as you know, no one else really cares.
Right.
So if I can, I'm sorry, I'm late for another Zoom call, but I do want to give my thanks to everyone, my dear friend Robin, and then thanks Mr. Turner for all of his making sure that he answered all of my questions. So good to meet everyone, and I look forward to it. Okay.
Well, you're part of the family. You're part of the family now. We're trying to grow our audience, so now we got a Midwestern contingent that we're expecting. Okay.
Very good. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Sarah, you want to jump on and talk about the Black Women's Conference in March?
No, thank you. Real quick. Yes. So BBA is hosting our 21st annual Salute to Black Women business conference, vendor fair, and awards luncheon. Check out our website at bbala.org for updates. We have as our President's Award, the U.S. Mint's Director. She's the 40th director and first African American awesome woman. You'll learn more about her. And our chairman's award is Miss Stephanie Wiggins, the CEO of LA Metro, and so much more happening, so much more. So just mark your calendars for March 23rd. Thank you, Crystal, and everybody at the community briefing. This was an excellent one. I was preparing, getting myself ready so I can get down to this conference. But this was such a lively discussion. And thank you so much, Ethel, for coming on and bringing all this 411. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Greg, go ahead and talk about AMAC, one of our prior presenters.
So Michael E. Washington was on and talked about AMAC. Let me share the screen here. They are having a discussion today at 5 p.m. And let's see if that comes through. And the topic is legal impact on civil rights program. It is a Zoom, so I put the link in there, and they were talking about several cases that have come up. So this is part of their monthly chapter meeting, and Nigel Stevens will be speaking this evening. So do check that out.
And Stephen, who's our guest for next week? Stephen still there? Let me see. I think he sent me something. He must have gotten to a call. But we do have, who's the guest for next week? Did you get that email, Greg? No.
Yeah.
He sent something out earlier. Let's see.
While you guys are looking for that, I do want to make the announcement that the mayor has appointed 7 leaders to her city's small business cabinet, and nice group of people that have been added. This guy, Stephen Chung, who's the CEO and president of LA County Economic Development Corporation, exceptional. He's an exceptional individual. Kim Hunter is there from LaGrange Communications, who we know, and Angela Gibson. Shaw is also added. But again, the mayor is doing her thing, and I'm in much appreciation for the fact that she's trying to be inclusive, and she's thinking about the things that touch our community on a regular basis.
I quite
Next
agree.
week is Crystal Coleman. She's the founder of Help, assisting individuals with long-term care solutions and solutions. So long-term care solutions, I guess, and other solutions is what it says here. So she will be joining us next week.
All righty. And we have Norma Dawkins from the Food, Nutrition, and Longevity in February. I think she's with the University of Tuskegee on February 22nd. And then we have Jane Franklin from Workforce Development. And then I met a host of other people in the last couple of days. I've been networking, so we should have a full schedule soon. We want to thank you guys. Please, let's take this. It will be up this afternoon. Let's pass this, share this conversation we had with everyone that we know, because this is a conversation that we have to intensify the energy here, just like we have to follow suit with the lunatic and use his marketing techniques because they work, and we need to each one teach one or something of that nature. Because for me, I do all that I do for the kids, our future. And I am not pleased with what this world's going to look like. In fact, my sister told me the other day, she goes, I think we should be having a conversation for what our plan will be for the 4 years in the event that this man becomes, because there's a possibility. So what are we going to do then? Because we're going to be under attack.
Ghana.
And that's not hyperbole.
As Ethel showed us, of the 34.4 million eligible voters, we got 2 million of them are here in Southern California. I mean, here in California. So, we got work to do.
We do. But thank you, guys.
I'm thinking about Ghana real.
I don't know. I'm thinking a little closer, a little Panama, maybe.
Right.
They got water issues.
All I say is go get your passport. Make sure it's active
and pay
ready.
for the global entry, so you get ahead of
nice this time of year.
Hey, because this dude is serious about shooting protesters in the street. I mean, this is some serious stuff. I mean, he's saying some. Now, the one thing you have to give it to the Democrats, as of late, they do have a rapid response team.